Okay, so I completely forgot to film an intro for this video somehow in the entire time that I was filming everything. But what you're going to see at the beginning of this is I have a tank top pinned to my mannequin. Basically what I did is I took an old tank top that I didn't need anymore, or that I wasn't going to use or whatever, and then I cut it up the sides, hemmed the sides, obviously, so that you don't have fraying, and I cut off the straps because the armor that I was going for wouldn't have straps or anything like that. And then I just pinned the whole thing back onto the mannequin, and basically that's where I'm starting at. This cosplay is for a character that I created in one of my novels that I'm currently writing. She's the main character. She has fire powers, therefore she required dragon scale armor just so that she didn't always burn up her clothes whenever she's in battle using fire, because that would be awkward. But yeah, so I basically, we already posted the video of heading to the one-year adventure novel summer workshop conference thingy, and this was basically for that. I did this before we went, obviously, but I haven't had a chance to post it until now, so yeah, that's what we're going for. It's just a simple armor thing, never done armor before, and I just wanted to try it and see if I could work out a cosplay for the conference, and it it worked out pretty well. Definitely not the best thing ever. I am no expert. This is not a how to do it. I will say that multiple times throughout the video. Don't follow my example in everything. If anything, watch this video so that you can figure out a few things not to do. And also just see the typical person trying to jump into this thing without being an expert. If you really need more helpful tips, find an expert on YouTube and watch their video, because that's going to be way more helpful. That's what I did to get into this. This is just my experience making it first. But yeah, enjoy the video. So I'm going to be using this foam for the scales. I've never worked with foam before, so we're going to see how that goes. But first, I'm going to draw a pattern on this piece of paper, and I think I'm just going to do like a diamond type shape, and then cut it out, and I'm just going to use it to pattern the foam. I'm going to make several strips by just laying well, I'll just show you. So I'm just going to make a very rough kind of diamond shape, and that should be good enough. I did watch a couple videos on how to do this all before doing this. Probably will link a couple videos down below, because this isn't really a how-to, this is just watch me go insane. So, is that going to work, or do I want it to be just a little bit more symmetrical, rounded? I think we're gonna go with this. Whoop. That. Alright. And then I'm just going to trace it out on this to make several strips to use for the bigger areas, and then I'll make several individual scales to use for the top areas that are going to be a little bit harder to fit strips into. Okay, so as I mentioned before, I just basically laid this down, did a repeating action over and over and over, and that way I could just kind of make a line at the top and then just cut it out in strips. And then I didn't use the little paper template much after this. I just kind of took the strips that I had cut and I used that because it was way faster than outlining each individual little, you know, stupid little scale. So yeah, that's basically what I did here. You can see I put the line at the top there, and then I just cut down that side, so only the detailed cutting was on the other side. These took forever to cut, but it's okay because I did have help. My sister helped a lot on this cosplay. She is pretty craft savvy, and she was definitely a major help in getting these scales done faster. I needed so many of these strips, it was insane. So definitely cut more than you think you need. Okay, so it is now the next day. I didn't realize that this was going to take as long as it is taking, but I now have lots. Hopefully it's enough to cover both the front and the back, because I did forget momentarily that I did have a back. I also have a bottom part that I'm making that's kind of like a skirt style in a bit of a Roman style, if that makes sense to anyone. But definitely gonna have to cut more for the skirt. But we're gonna focus on this bit first, and hopefully this will get us through the top section of the armor. So we're going to start gluing, because I don't want to pin it all in place, only to have to start gluing from the bottom, which is where I'm going to have to start gluing from just to get the layering properly. So yeah, and I'll probably speed up the video for most of the part while I'm doing that, unless I have a comment to make on how it's going. Because again, this isn't like, this is how you do it, because I don't know what I'm doing. So if I have a comment on, hey, so I just noticed that I'm doing this, and don't do this, then yeah, I'll probably throw that in, but most of it should be sped up because hopefully it'll go smoothly. Okay, so yeah, basically what you're seeing here is just me gluing the strips over and over on there. You can see in the front there, I kind of like folded the tank top over and then pinned it in place because it wasn't fitting perfectly to the mannequin. And I'll mention later, I needed this to be like perfectly fitted because it's armor, so it would be weird if it was kind of like loose. And also there's no straps, so it had to be fitted so that it would actually fit and stay on my body. But yeah, I used foam glue that I got at Michael's, and I think I used 2 full bottles of it. I also wound up using some Gorilla super glue later in the video. I'll point that out when it happens though. And I did go back later after, you know, traveling with the armor, and I tried to keep it in its shape while traveling, but I did go after because a few of the tips of the scales did come up. So I just went through with the super glue and basically glued those down. Okay, so one thing that I wanted to say real quick, I don't know if you can tell in the sped up version, but because the arm is going to have a curve like this on the side for a bit of hip, despite the fact that I don't have hips, I am cutting some of the pieces in half so it's not just one full strip, and that way I can overlap them a little bit so that they fit with the curve better, because I do want the armor to be as fitted as possible. So that does seem to be working so far. It is a little bit harder to glue it on top of the foam here and the foam here, but we're making it work. So it is very slow going. If you try to make armor, be prepared to spend a lot of time on it, even with something as simple as this, because I'm by no means an expert, and this is by no means going to be perfection in any way. But even with imperfection, it's going to take time. So one other thing that I had to be sure of while I was doing this, you can see I'm sticking little pins in there to hold it in place while the glue dries. It didn't take very long to dry, which is why I was able to move fairly quick. I mean, it took almost 7 hours, but still fairly quick in just continuing to do the next lines. I did have to pause a couple times to just let a strip dry that was taking a bit longer to dry. But the thing is, don't forget about, oh yeah, the camera fell here, whoops. Don't forget about the pins, because I did pull like, I think 3 pins out of the foam later that I found after I'd like finished gluing everything. It was kind of hilarious, and it didn't cause any damage or anything because I managed to get it out properly. But yeah, if you're gonna pin stuff in place, which is probably necessary if you're doing it the way that I'm doing it, remember the pins, because if you leave them in, they might get extremely stuck, and no one wants to just have random pins in their armor and then put it on and get stabbed. So, because that's, you know, a bit uncomfortable. But, yeah, towards the top, it definitely got a little bit harder because the shaping was so much different, and it was taking a little bit more glue and stuff just to make sure that it stayed on securely. Oh, one other thing that I was doing this whole time is I would pull a little bit at the armor just to make sure I wasn't gluing anything to the mannequin in case I put on too much glue or something like that. You can see I used the Gorilla Glue a couple times in there. Okay, so we've gotten up to this point so far, and right now I think I'm going to start doing individual scales, and I'm just going to cut up some of my lines as they are since I already have that partially made, and we'll see how that goes. Hopefully I can fill in this hole right here that might cause problematic, but we'll hope it doesn't. So yeah, so basically, like I said, I just kept going and I did a lot of individual little scales. They were much harder to keep in place. You can see the amount of pins I'm using at this point. And it was also super frustrating to get them to fit in everything perfectly because there was so much curving and everything to try and make it even and fit into the scale pattern that I had going. But we made it work. So yeah, basically just did that on repeat. I had to shape some of the scales, as you can see, to fit into the design of the top part with the little spiky parts. I don't know what you would call that, but yeah. And again, don't forget your pins in there. Pretty sure one of the pins that I forgot was stuck in the top because I just forgot that it was there. All right, so this is what we have right now. And that is for the front. I think I'm going to be done with that. I might try and do some trimming here, but I'll have to figure out what pieces of leather I'm going to use. But for now, I'm going to let this all dry, and then I can take out all the pins that are currently holding the still wet pieces in place to make sure that they don't move too much. But yeah, after that, I'm just going to do the back piece exactly the same way. Sorry, I can't show my face properly. But yeah, I probably am going to need more glue, unfortunately. But hopefully, since the back is much, not much, but kind of a little bit smaller, it won't take as much time because this front part took me literally all day. Well, from like, I think I started at 1:30, and it is now 8:30. So 7 hours to do all that in place. I did have a couple breaks in between though, so if you work straight, it might be a little bit less than that. Also, you might just be better than me at doing it faster. But for me, that took about a little less than 7 hours. But yeah, so I'll come back to it tomorrow, see if I can start to finish up the back. And I still have the skirt part to do, but I'm going to do most of that off camera because it's going to be a lot simpler. So yeah, I don't really have anything to say for this part. Again, you can see I did have to fold the tank top. Forgot what it was called for a second. My goodness. I folded the tank top a little bit, pinned it in place, and then basically just did the same thing. It was a little bit easier going on the back just because there was less oddness to the shape. Also, I was I was now used to, well, kind of used to putting the scales on. I had more experience. Where did I go? I was probably messing with my TV show or something. I was watching a TV show the whole time. Definitely helped pass the time because otherwise this would have been boring. But yeah, anyway. Oh, I was using a Q-tip to put the glue on. Probably should have mentioned that before, but it did help spare glue and stuff like that and get it into all the corners of the scales and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, just kind of kept going with this and trimming stuff where it needed to be trimmed. Did have to stretch it in a little in a few places to get it to fit with the scales where they're supposed to go and stuff like that. But yeah, that's pretty much it. So I guess I'll just let the rest of this play and hopefully finish quickly. Alright, so now that I have fully completed the whole top part of that armor, I have to do the skirt part, which I'm trying to layer kind of in a Romanesque style. I don't know if anyone's going to know what that means until they actually see it, but that's the picture I have in my head. And I'm going to be putting the scales on these strips of jeans that I cut out of an old pair of jeans that my dad gave me to use. And then I'm gonna put them on a belt, and we'll see how well it goes. It might not go well at all, but we're gonna try it out. And I'm gonna skip forward again, speed it up so that you don't have to sit there in the tediousness while I do more gluing like I do. So behold my massive roll of scales. I did have to cut more for this. As I mentioned before, there's so many scales, but these were so much easier to do than literally any of the other stuff, which, you know, obvious because it's just a flat little rectangle of stuff. But yeah, was definitely running out of glue towards a bit here. You'll see at some point I think I started going skimpy on the glue, but because this was flat, it kind of, oh yeah. Also, see, my sister jumped in again. She's awesome. But she didn't want to be on camera, so she's kind of just sitting in the little corner there, and you can just see her hands. But yeah, you can see we kind of started going skimpy on the glue because we didn't want to run out and go have to buy more when we were so close to the end. And we didn't, so yay. I think we did about five or seven of these, but I think we only used 5. But I did extra just in case. You know, it's always better to have stuff that you don't need rather than to not have enough. And we did use a lot of scraps to finish in part of this because it was a flat surface and it was easier to do, and you might as well use the little bits that you have. Okay, so ignoring the massive amounts of scraps that I have everywhere, we now have 5 of these thingies, and I'm going to attach them to this belt, and I think I'm just going to glue them on this type of way before I do any kind of heat treatment on the foam, because it'll probably need to bend a little bit to be able to buckle around my waist, which I don't think should be a problem because it's foam and it can already bend like this a good amount. But I have also found in my research that it is easier to paint foam after you heat treat it because it closes the pores or something, which is weird. But so we're gonna do that first. I'm gonna attach to the belt, and then I'm going to give everything a heat treatment, and then we'll finally get to priming. And yes, it is the next day. Actually, it's the day after the next day because yesterday I worked all day and didn't have time to work on this. So today is the day that we finish, or at least that's what we hope. I also do kind of wish that I could have found a different belt, like one that's thicker and doesn't have the little flower holy designs, but I don't have another belt and I don't want to spend more money on this cosplay, so we are using what we have, and it is going to work somehow. Besides, I'm betting that after everything and after I put on all the armor and stuff, you won't even be able to see the belt, so it'll be fine. Now, I am going to try and layer it. I have marked the belt here, where that's like as far as I needed to go to fit around my waist. So I'm going to measure this out real quick. I'm going to shut the glue so that I don't wind up with a problem. And yeah, I am using Gorilla Glue because I wasn't sure what other kind of glue to use, and I figured Gorilla Glue would make it stick. at least somewhat fully effectively. Let's see. Need more space. All right. I'm going a little bit over the hole, but that's okay because it's always better to go longer. Golden rule of crafting. All right. We can probably fix it if I glue it on wrong, right? We can probably fix it. So we're just gonna go for it. Let's go. Okay, so I don't think there's much that I need to say here. Just kind of glued stuff and had to make sure that everything stayed spaced out and stuff. It was really helpful that I marked the belt with the one place. But yeah, I used Gorilla Glue for all of this, like I mentioned, and I think that worked way better because it just fit the belt better than the other glue probably would have. Not to mention the fact that I was already almost out of the other glue. So yeah, just kind of did that and went for it. So we now have this, which hopefully I should be able to simply wrap around my waist. It works! What? And then of course that closes there. Now I do want it to curve a little bit more, maybe. But I would probably just fix it every time I was wearing it, because I don't actually want it to have to be worn in a certain position, because that seems tiresome. Now, my question currently is, do I need to reinforce the joints here with some kind of something? I could sew through the belt loops and kind of secure it at the little points there, because I don't think the glue worked as well there. It's holding together a lot, so I'm not really surprised. On the belt part, it seems to be holding very well. So I think that's what I'm gonna do, is reinforce it a little bit with some thread. So we'll get to that real quick before the heat treatment. One last step before we actually get to the painting part. All right, I have now sewn through a couple of the spots just to give it more of a grip on the that. So I am a little annoyed because it does fit around my waist all good in that, but there is like, let me show. There's like a slit here, which isn't too bad for my first try, so I'm not super annoyed, and it doesn't, you know, could be worse. So I'm going to attach it to this lady, and then I'm going to try and heat treat it all, see if I can get it to take a little bit of a curve naturally. Ignore all the noises in the background. People are coming in and out of the house. But yeah, I'm gonna heat treat it to get the pores to close up. I'm gonna try to be really careful because I'm really afraid of like drying out the glue and stuff and then making everything fall apart, which would be a nightmare at this point. But that's next step. So I didn't show all the heat treatment here, but I didn't really know how long to go. I just kind of went for it. Obviously, I am blocking part of the top part. Had to remove that to do the rest of it, but I didn't show that either. So yeah, I just kind of went over it until I felt like it looked right. All right, so I now have it all set up outside now that I've done all the heat treatment and stuff. It does seem to be holding its shape fairly well, which I don't really need it to a ton, so it's doing just good enough. And I'm gonna use Plastidip because the internet told me that's what I should use. And I'm just gonna spray it. I'm probably gonna do like 2 to 3 coats depending on how much I can actually get out of this thing because I'm not spending any more money on this cosplay than I already have. So yeah, hopefully this works. Alright, so that's the first layer. It was actually really hard to tell where it already sprayed because it's all black and that stuff is black too. I also feel like it made that piece curl up a little bit. I don't know if that's normal or if that's just my imagination and it was just retaking the form it wanted. But I'm gonna let that dry for a little bit and then I'll be back out to do another coat. Again, trying for 3 before I actually put any paint on it. Alright, we're gonna do the second coat. It is dry. It does have a little bit of like this sheen to it or something. I don't know. There's a bird, it's distracting. Anyway, yeah. Okay, here's something that I just started noticing. There's a few little lumpies. I don't know if that's something that I'm doing or if it's the Plastidip doing something. I've never seen this in any of the videos that I've watched. It doesn't seem to be doing it on the skirt part like at all. I don't see any little lumpies there. But it did do it in a few places on this one too. Right there, there. That one's not. That one's me. That was my mistake. Whoopsies. Yeah, I don't know what those are. I'm not gonna worry about them too much because I don't know how to fix them. So worrying about them would be both pointless and tiresome. But yeah, if anyone knows what that is, let me know. How to avoid that in the future because that's probably a problem. But yeah, so far so good. Definitely think I'm gonna be able to make 3 coats, which is, as far as I know, the recommended amount of coats before I start spray painting. Yes, there is a little bit of white from the tank top thing. I'm forgetting how to speak, but I'm gonna try and cover that up with both the paint and the third coat of Plastidip, just to, you know, be sure. But yeah, so far so good aside from those lumpies. Alright, we're gonna go over everything with, well, that all went super smoothly there for a second. Anyway, going over it with this. I got this at Michael's. I know that people normally like airbrush their foam stuff, but I don't have that. I have this. So we're gonna do it and see if that works. One thing to note, if you were doing this outside like I am, because you don't have a place inside where you're not going to kill yourself with the fumes, make sure that you don't get your pieces stuck to the cardboard, because I've been going over and lifting it all up to make sure that it doesn't dry stuck and then wind up tearing something, which hopefully it wouldn't. Just a note if anyone is watching this and might make that mistake. I don't know. Anyway, let's get to it. Alright, so I just had a mini stupid camera. Okay. Mini freak out because this is way lighter than I thought that it was going to be. The sample that it showed at the store was much darker than this. So, that happened. But, my sister likes it, and she's read the book that this character is from. So, you know what? We're gonna go with it, I guess. I mean, again, I don't want to have to spend more money on paint, so yeah. I am going to try to leave some black splotches just to let in the more darker bits. I don't know. But, okay. Fun. So that's what it looks like currently. I don't hate it. And at this point, that is a win. I don't hate it. We're gonna let it dry, and then I'm gonna come back and figure out what I think. All right, so beginning to feel more confident because I think now that I'm looking at this does actually look fairly good. I'm gonna go over it entirely with this, make sure that I get it all colored, and then I'm going, if needed, to go over everything with a paintbrush and black paint and darken it a little bit, only if needed. Probably will be needed. This cosplay is taking so long, but you know what? It shall be worth it. Alright, so we failed. We did not, in fact, finish yesterday, but you know what? That's fine. We're gonna finish today. We're actually gonna finish today. Anyway, they look amazing. It kind of is a little bit freaky when you first like pick it up and stuff, because it doesn't obviously see, like, it doesn't look as formed as it did on the mannequin, but it does bend to my body, so don't worry about that. It still works, and it's better that it's flexible anyway. So what we need to do with these two pieces is put the eyelets up the side. Also, I did miss this entire spot of black right here. I actually need to trim. There's a little bit of excess there. I need to trim that off with some scissors. I'm not going to fix it because I don't care. But yeah, anyway, now here's the thing. When putting eyelets in, you are supposed to have like a hole punchy thing for foam, at least. I don't know what you do it with sewing. I didn't look that up. But I don't have that. So I have a various collection of cutting instruments, and I'm just going to make it work. And I will explain what I did afterward if it works. And if it doesn't, it will. Alright, so basically what I did here was a very undignified stabby stab with scissors and a leather, oh my goodness, what's this called? A dowel, I think it's called. But yeah, basically I just marked out where I wanted the hole to be and then just poked it out and stuck the whatever it's called in there. I'm losing my memory on everything, but yeah, I stuck it in there. I had a little thing that came with the kit, just hammered it into place, and don't hammer too hard, you will break it. I did ruin a couple, but figured it out in the end, and I will recommend later using thicker things. I mentioned that because I had to replace one of them because they popped out and messed up, but it was all fine in the end, so I'd say that's a win. And it didn't take too long. It probably would have been better if I wasn't on the ground. Alright, I did the other eyelets off camera. I actually love how it looks. It actually kind of looks official. And now I'm going to have to go steal a sister to help me put this on and show the whole thing. Probably in full cosplay. Okay, ignore everything in the background, but this is the entire thing put together. I have no idea what it looks like in the back. My sister laced me up and she says it looks fine. So this is a bit of a problem, and I'm probably going to have to cut it off or paint it something. I don't know. I'll figure that out later. There is the hole right there that I would like to figure out how to fix, but that's a problem for another day. And since I don't have that much time before I'm actually going to be wearing this cosplay, I'm probably going to just be situating it so that it looks as good as possible and ignore that. Also, tip when you use the eyelets, use big ones, because one of mine popped out, and I think it's because the foam is thick and I didn't get thick enough eyelets. So if you're going to be using foam, get really big ones. It'll make your life much easier. But yeah. Oh, got my hand. There's the finished product. I'm actually super happy with it for my first try, in which I knew nothing about what I was doing. So, yay!